Reading in bed.
Right, Amanda, what's been going on here today with Zoom then?
I'm hearing voices.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Like if anyone uses Zoom, now we're digressing before we even start today, which is weird itself. But yeah, it's weird because there's been an upgrade done on Zoom, haven't they, where it tells you like recording in progress.
Yeah,
So,
I don't like it. I find it very off-putting.
yeah,
Because I use Zoom to record chapters of my book, Ghost of Me, that I'm doing a podcast for. And having that shouting at you before you get started, it puts you off of your train of thought sometimes.
Yeah, I've had that lot with Spoken Label recently as well, so it's rather unusual. Now, but of course, Amanda, what are we doing today?
We're doing Reading in Bed.
Now, what episode number is it? I know this and you don't know.
I don't know. I know we've done a lot.
Have a guess then. I'll correct you if you're wrong.
It's in the 40s.
Give me a number then. 440?
42?
Right, what a guess. I bow. Yep, it is 42 episodes, guys, yeah. It's a bit like me, it's 3.5 years now. Well, okay. Now, of course, I am Andy N.
And I'm Amanda Steele.
For the moment, aren't you, Amanda?
Who else am I going to be?
Who knows? If you're hanging around September, October time.
One day I might be somebody else, yeah.
September, October time, things could change there, but we'll come on to that in September or October. Now, of course, this is Reading in Bed, episode 42. And as always, with Reading in Bed, what do we do, Amanda, before we go into our books?
We waffle on about our own books.
Yeah, news, not waffle.
Also known as news, yeah.
Yeah, never waffle, news. Now, I'm going to let Amanda go first. I've got a few things I'm going to be announcing myself for once as well. So, okay, Amanda, over to you first, love.
Okay, so as part of my 12 projects in 12-month challenge that I set myself, I've got a book coming out on the 7th of June. You can pre-order it on Kindle and it'll show up magically around the same time on paperback, and it's called You Won't Believe What Happens If You Buy This Book.
And what does happen if you buy this book, Amanda?
Something? Nothing? Who knows? You'll have to buy it.
Yeah. Now, what is the premise? What is the premise of this book, Amanda? Oh, I like that word, premise.
Well, the subtitle gives it away. The subtitle is a spoof clickbait collection.
Yeah. Now, where did this come from originally, Amanda? Just so people know.
It came from my workshop, which you started last year, wasn't it? Just shortly after the first lockdown.
Yes. If people wonder what I mean by workshop, it's a very informal little workshop. Me and Amanda do with a few friends, basically. And it came off, Amanda, didn't it? Where I found, was it you or me found a website with spoof clickbait on? You had to write about it, didn't you?
You did a task on this website and got us to generate these clickbait titles. And I like the one, 12 Things Employers Don't Want You to Know. Because there's lots of people will know, listen to this. I've gone on about it before. Yeah. I've had all sorts of things going on with jobs when I've applied for them and people just not being very nice and trying to get you to work for nothing and all sorts of other things. So it gave me a chance to vent in that. And that got broadcast on BBC Radio Manchester as well.
Yeah, and then it led people then wondering, we both do Napawino every year, don't we? National Poetry Writing Month. What did you decide to do this year for it, Amanda?
I'd wanted to do a whole collection of these spoof clickbait pieces on different subjects. And then as April was coming up, I thought that's the perfect time to do it. Instead of writing a poem a day, I'm going to write one of these a day, which doesn't quite fit into poetry or fiction. It's kind of sort of a strange hybrid, I think.
Yeah, it's unorthodox, certainly. So that's the book you're bringing out, Amanda, isn't it?
Yeah.
When's the book out? If people are interested in checking this fascinating collection out.
7th of June. You can pre-order the Kindle now, or you can just go online on the 7th of June and get the paperback when it magically appears out of thin air.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So now you've got further news beyond that, Amanda, as well, haven't you, for this 12 projects in 12 months thing?
Yeah, my book, Ghost of Me, which I should also mention is in hard copy now. So it's in paperback, hard copy, all the different ebook formats, podcasts, not the film rights, but If Quentin Tarantino's listening, that'd be interesting if he wants to turn that into a film.
Yeah, or nice expensive Netflix series would be lovely as well.
So
Yeah.
leading on from that, anyway, I've done the 20,000 word novella that follows on from that, which just kind of shows how it ends for the main character and sort of an after story, really. And that's coming out on paperback only in July.
Ooh.
But if you do want to read that online, it's going to be on Medium in weekly or every few days. A new chapter's going to be posted. So if you've got a membership on there, or if you want to get a membership, I think it's like $5 a month, and you can read that, and obviously you can read all the other stuff that's on Medium as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. What made you, Amanda, want to do this in Medium as a Medium exclusive then?
Well, I've been on Medium for a while on and off, and I've started trying to take it seriously this month. So I've done a lot of articles on there, and it just seemed like a good thing to be able to just post the content on. And I've been looking into the best way to post fiction on there. So I figured out what I'm going to do. So
yeah, that's a good idea. Good luck with it. So
it basically gives me 10 chapters to post. So that's 10 pieces of content to post.
Yeah. Now, of course, now there's one thing you haven't mentioned in your sequel to Ghost to Me, is he, Amanda? You don't have a title for it yet, do you?
No. So if anybody has read the book or wants to read it, and there's an epilogue in there that kind of leads into the novella. So if you think you've got a good idea for a title, then let me know.
Yeah, no, good luck with it, definitely. So now, would you like to know my news, Amanda? I've got more news than you this month.
Are you pregnant?
I know, well, that's just basically make sure this thing's gone into an X-rated thing straight away,
Yeah,
Amanda, hasn't it?
adult content, and it has nothing to do with the books.
Exactly. So yeah, unfortunately, someone insulted me. Gets the F-bomb dropped. Anyway, so now, first of all, music news, and this one's a big one as well, actually. I don't know if you remember, Amanda. Last year, we had an album come out on a French label called Cavanagh Electric, and what's happened is I've been in negotiations with Jan, who runs that label, and we've actually agreed for, you ready this, Amanda? Not one Ocean of Bottle album,
but three,
yeah, all on the theme of Jupiter's moons. Now they're all going to be coming out mid-June, mid-July, and mid-August. And there's about a couple of years worth of work there. Basically, this album has been brewing for a while. So, where there's 30 odd tracks now. Originally, we were going to do this as one album, but Jan suggested to me, "Why do you do it as 3 albums?" So 3 albums are on the way, part 1, 2, and 3. So that's somewhat different, I suppose, isn't it? So yeah, maybe watch your space. So okay, now in addition to that, book news. Yes, now Amanda talked about. Now you talked about Napawino before, Amanda, didn't you? Your clickbait pieces.
Yeah.
I did over Napawino myself. I did a haiku book where I wrote 40, or in fact, it ended up being 50 actually, 50 haiku pieces, all about my life from the year I was born to next year when I turn 50. So what I did at least one a day, each covering a year of my life. So now I've been stewing on this for a bit, but yeah, it's going to be coming out as a book. So I'm going to bring it out a book probably some point mid-June to the end of June. I need to get the final edit done on it. So that'll be coming out quite soon.
It's the extra haiku like for next year then. So it's not happened yet.
Yeah, I've done one looking forward to next year, basically. So I want to turn 50. So I thought I'd make it 50, don't I? Right. So
yeah,
that's why I did it with chances that using like as a looking back process on the last piece. So yeah, so that's done 50. So, and do you want to know my other news as well, Amanda?
Yeah.
Probably July, I reckon, more than June. But I've been gathering together. People know I've been doing regular features just over a year now for the Sunday Tribune, an online arts newspaper. And I've decided basically it was time to get the best of the articles put together into one book. So it might end up in 2 books yet, because I was gathering a load of them last night that I've saved, and it's well over 100 pages now already, and I've not got all of them on there yet. So it'll probably 150, 200 pages. So I might split it.
I think that works fine as one book, to be honest.
Just one book, yeah, makes sense. Because I wasn't sure. With being a poet, I always believe you stop about 100 pages. But if this gets to the 200 pages, and it could do potentially, then I've got to decide basically what the final point is in here. But I want to do some re-edits anyway, so that'll probably be July. So And I thought to myself, we'll be going back to the day job full time, hopefully soon, in the office. It's a good time to bring this out as a reflection process anyway. So, as you can see, guys and girls, it's been a busy month. And no doubt in July and Monday, it'll be busier for us both, won't it?
Yeah. I've got jobs that might pan out, so I could be very busy.
Yeah, I think you're going to be very busy. And I know I'm going to be very busy as well. So, with bits, like I said, with work coming back up as well. So, but anyway, on to books. Now, as we did last month, people may remember we did a book together last month, Amanda, didn't we? Read one, so we can do a joint review.
Yeah.
So, should we do that one first?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people what the book is, and I'll read the blurb out?
Yeah, it's called 13, and it's by Steve Cavanagh, and it's book 4 in the Eddie Flynn series.
Yeah, the blurb is: the serial killer isn't on trial; he's on the jury. They were Hollywood's hottest power couple. They had the world at their feet. Now one of them
Read
is
it like
dead.
a normal person.
Now one of them
Read it
is
like a
dead.
normal person.
And Hollywood star Robert Solomon is charged with the brutal murder of his beautiful wife. Should I read it properly now?
Yeah, be a normal person for once, yeah.
What's that?
Look, see, now you've got to do it.
Yeah, I've got the police coming in the background here. They're coming to take me away. But anyway. Right now, we're digressing completely. Okay. The serial killer isn't on trial. He's on the jury. They were Hollywood's hottest power couple. They had the world at their feet. Now one of them is dead, and Hollywood star Robert Solomon is charged with the brutal murder of his beautiful wife. This is a celebrity murder trial of the century, and a defense with one man on their team, con artist turned lawyer Eddie Flynn. All the evidence points to Robert's guilt, but as the trial begins, a series of sinister incidents in the courtroom starts to raise doubts in Eddie's mind. What if there's more than one actor in the courtroom? What if the killer isn't on trial? What if the killer is on the jury? Right, Amanda, where should we start? Where should we start?
So, shall we tell people what drew us to this, or what drew me to this? Because I was the one that discovered it.
Yeah, it was you, not with me. You got me an arm locked and we're reading this, reading in bed, or else.
Yeah.
I had to do what I'm told. No, go on. You tell people what drew you to it.
I'm on a couple of crime groups, crime fiction groups on Facebook, and one of them had posted about this, and they were saying a lot of good things about it. And it was a tagline: "The serial killer isn't on trial; he's on the jury." That's what drew me in, and I thought that sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, certainly. How do you describe it? It was colourful, Amanda, wasn't it? Really, that's for sure with the book. So that's why. Now, first thing I want to talk about here is I thought it got off to a great start, this book as well. When you had the killer, didn't you? First of all, showing how well you planned everything by breaking into somebody's room and then killing them, basically, take their place on the jury. Because there was no messing around, was there, really, with that? It went straight for the jugular immediately.
Yeah. Because when I read the tagline, I was thinking, well, I suppose it's possible. It's like one in a however many million or billion chance that someone would be called onto the jury who's actually the murderer. But it's not like that at all. It's actually very well planned how he gets onto the jury and how he keeps on the jury, which we won't ruin everything for people.
No, we're going to try and keep off the spoiler as much as we can today, guys. Obviously, there's various reasons of it. Yeah, but the setup got off to a really good start in the book, that's for sure of it. Now, what was your initial reaction to Eddie Flynn like, Amanda?
It wasn't my favourite character in the book, actually. It was the actor guy that was my favourite character, Robert Solomon.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it wasn't shown that much. But I don't know about you, but sometimes when you're like reading the book and the characters and you start thinking of them, as maybe a famous person, so you can picture them in your head. And I felt like he could have been a younger version of Johnny Depp.
Yeah, that's a good idea, that. I hadn't thought of that, I must admit to you. So, no, it's an interesting point, certainly. So, I must admit, I did find, actually, Eddie Flynn as a defence lawyer, I did find him an engaging character when the book got going eventually. He did leave an impact on me, and it surprised me, and I didn't spot this straight away. I know, was it you spotted or later on, where we both realised it was actually the fourth book in the series, didn't we?
Yeah. And you kind of get hints to that, and we might have missed something.
I don't think it was major,
But
was it? It didn't seem major.
no, I think the thing that stood out to me a lot was when he was saying, "Oh, he couldn't be with his ex-wife and his wife who was divorcing him and his daughter because it would put them in danger." And maybe that's explained more in the other books. But it just seemed a bit strange because there's plenty of lawyers and they have families and they're not putting them in danger. So it just made me wonder, well, why is this specific family in danger? And I've got a feeling that's probably explained more in the first three books.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, I agree with you completely. And it's just really, really strange. No, I don't know, but no, it didn't distract too much, did it? Really? So
No, it didn't distract from the story in that particular book. It just made me wonder. But I'm not enough to go back and read all three books because I'm not really a big fan of series like this. But this book on its own was okay.
yeah, no, I agree. Now, there's one point in this strength that I know I think we disagreed a little bit as well, where for me it took a while after the initial impact of the book to get going for me. Now you're different to me in that, weren't you?
I think I just enjoyed reading. You could tell how well it had been researched. There was a lot of detail in it. If I was going to write something like this, it wouldn't be nearly as detailed because I don't have access to the kind of research that this author clearly does.
Yeah,
It's
no, that's fair.
obviously like, it's not just like Googled this, he's spoken to people in person.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. It is a fair point. It just didn't seem to. For me, it seemed to lose a more point to me, really. The pace seemed to slow a bit for the build up. And it's a tricky one because you couldn't have done 300 pages set in the court thing. You had to look at either lots going on outside of it or the build up to it. It was the build up side. And I didn't enjoy that bit as much in the book. But when it got to the actual trial side, it had me on board for the rest of the second half of the book in general, really, actually. So, but it is what it is. So. But as I would say with it now, is there anything else strengths wise in this book you want to talk about, Amanda?
I enjoyed the short chapters that switch between the different characters. So you might see maybe a page or two or just a couple of pages, something like that, and then it flick to another character and you got to wait till it gets back to them.
Yeah, no, that was. I've made a note of that myself there because I thought that was really well done. That because the pace was good in the book. Even I thought bits of it like didn't grab me as much because it's not more often than not it was going between Eddie Flynn than the serial killer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think if you have like big, like 10,000 word chapters, I think that can if it's not a great chapter or if it's not one of the characters you want to read about, I mean that can be a bit off putting. But you know, you've only got a few pages and it's going to switch back then.
Yeah, no, that's what I thought the strength of the book was for me. The pacing, that I agree with you completely. So, right, Amanda. Okay then. Have you got anything else on the strengths you want to talk about before we go on to the
Nothing.
weaknesses?
I think I've covered everything.
Yeah. Okay, weaknesses. Have you got anything on the weaknesses?
No, not really. I've mentioned about the previous books probably answering my questions, but it's not so much a weakness because it is in a series, so there's always going to be something that's not covered in the book.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, you know what I'm going to be talking about, don't you?
I have a feeling.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no, it's because of my work background. I can't, people know me, they know what I'm on about here. I had some issues with some of the stuff that happened within the jury, and I'm not going to give spoilers away. And I was really surprised that the judge didn't throw out the jury completely. What was
Yeah.
going on? It's surprised me about that one, truth be told you. But again, I'll just put that down to American laws different to British law, so move on.
Yeah. And
Now,
I felt like it was believable. Obviously, I don't have the knowledge that you do, but while I was reading it and in the setting, it felt real enough to me. I had no reason to doubt any of it.
no, I didn't hate it.
That's all you can do, I think, as long as you believe in the story.
Yeah, it's fair enough. In the world of the story, it's not a problem. I didn't. I struggled a bit with the final confrontation between the two central characters, to be honest with you. I found it a bit of an anticlimax after what was going on earlier in the book. So I think that's probably just me, that by the sound of things, well, all the reviews I've been reading. So I think it was okay for you when at the ending, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it dragged across the finish line fine, but I found it a bit of an anticlimax, really, but it doesn't matter either way. So Okay, Amanda. Markings.
I've given this 9 out of 10.
What do you reckon I've given it?
I'm not quite as high, but I think it's going to be a recommendation. So
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
7 or 8.
Hey, I enjoyed it. I generally did enjoy it. It's just there's a couple of things in it I've made me think it's more of an American market, really, and British market, because the law aspect of it is completely different to what you get in England. You wouldn't have got away with a lot of those sort of spectacular trials like that way it was going over here. So, no, but as I said, it was a good book. So, right, Amanda, we haven't decided, have we? Who's going to go second?
No, we don't know who's next.
Well, you're next this time. You can do the second book this month, okay? Because I know I did it last month, so I can say you're next.
Oh, scared.
Oh, well. Okay, well, what hints have you got for us, Amanda? Right, first solo book, anyway.
Oh, I'm invisible. I'm invisible. Help me, I'm invisible.
You are usually anyhow around me, so I'm used to that by now. So.
That's a hint.
The invisible woman. Right, anyway, hang around, guys. We promise you part 2 will be a bit quicker. So, see you in a minute. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed, episode 42. She is Amanda Steele.
And he is Andy N.
He is. That's nice.
He is.
Yo.
He is. I'm going to cut your ears off.
Oh, don't start that. Well, this podcast got taken down for deflammatory remarks on other authors.
Yeah, just so people don't know, that's us taking a mickey out of a really badly put together book that somebody was posting.
We're going to move on, okay? Now,
comparing
Amanda.
himself to Stephen King.
I'm just going to ignore the topic and move on. Right, Amanda, over to you then. First solo book this month.
Okay, so it's called The Invisible Victim, and it's by Mel Sherratt.
Okay, well, first of all then, Amanda, what made you want to read this book?
So this was on the website called Secret Readers, where you get a limited time to read it, and I don't know what that limited time is, but I know it'll disappear after a while.
Now, tell us about it, because I don't think you've talked about Secret Readers before. So, have you reviewed any books from Secret Readers before? Am I imagining things?
No, I did get a book ages ago from it, and I never got round to reading it before it got taken off.
Okay.
And then I got an email again, and I just liked the sound of this book, so I got it and read it as quickly as I could, because I didn't know when it would disappear into a black hole.
Never to be seen again. Or until you own by it anyway. So, okay, Amanda, that being the case, then, give us the blurb.
Okay. Let me out, please, I shouted, banging on the door. How had I got here? What day was it? I couldn't remember anything, but I knew I had become the 5th woman to be abducted. As my eyes adjust to the darkness, I'm filled with dread. Everything looks just like the others described: a small hole in the door, a mattress, and a narrow window allowing only a small chink of light. The jewellery given to me by my loving husband has gone, and I'm in someone else's clothes. Just days before, I had interviewed the 3rd victim for the local paper. She couldn't stop shaking. Her story was the same as those before her. An ordinary woman locked away for 10 days, then released with no explanation, and nothing she could do. She could think of to link her to the others. Throughout her ordeal, her abductor stayed eerily silent. I tell myself I'll be safe in 10 days, but I can't help thinking of the 4th victim who is still missing. And then I hear the voice coming through the door. You said everything would be fine, but it wasn't, was it? It was then that I realised if I am to make it out alive, I need to revisit a dark secret of my own that I've spent a lifetime trying to forget.
Ooh. Okay, Amanda. Strengths?
Okay, so I like the twists in this, even though I did guess one of the twists, but I think that was done on purpose, I think. A lot of people probably guessed it, but I'm not going to say what it is.
No, don't. Spoilers territory, okay? Now, also, I take it, was it a book that was very, very twisted then, basically, was it?
There was the initial twist that's revealed within the first half of the book, well within the first half of it. And then there's a bit of a twist later on when you find out exactly who this person is.
Yeah, so it's one of those sort of books that it's layers and basically, and they call it sometimes, don't you? So, well, they've almost like they give you a red herring twist on. So that's what made me wonder that straight away. So, Oh, interesting. So, okay, well, tell us about the main character then. Who is the main character?
Okay, so she's called Eva, and she's married. She's a journalist, and she's married to Nick, who's a police officer. But obviously, he's not involved in her case because he's taken off. But he's sort of unofficially investigating. Because I think you would, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just sit home watching Netflix where your wife's been kidnapped.
No, definitely not with that. So, no, I agree with you completely there on that one. So, yeah. So, no, carry on then. Yeah, tell us more about Strengths.
So there's a lot of suspense because the first 3 women have been let go after 10 days, and the 4th woman hasn't come home. So she's trying to tell herself, after 10 days she'll be let go, but it's obvious in the back of her mind, well, the 4th woman is still missing, so maybe whatever happened to her will happen to me. So you don't know exactly whether she'll get out alive or not until the very end.
Yeah, say no more then. Okay, well, what was the rest of the backing cast like in the book then? Was the book layered of good backing cast characters?
You see a little bit of Nick, but not very much. You see a lot from the abductor's point of view.
And I don't want to give too much away about the abductor. Was
Yeah.
the abductor a good counterbalance to the main character?
Yeah, but I felt like the author made them very unnecessarily psychotic, just for the sake of it.
So sounds like that straight away. So, okay. So, is there anything else on the strengths wise you want to talk about, Amanda?
No, it's a very short and sweet review that I've written notes for. So
Was it quite a long book then? Was it? Did you find?
I think it was over 300 pages.
And did you get through it quite easily then? Did you?
I got through it in about 2 or 3 weeks. I just made a point of reading a little bit every day before it vanished.
Yeah, that's
and
fair enough.
The good thing is as well, it's not actually officially out till the 28th of June. So I've managed to read it and get it finished and do the review of it before it's even released.
Excellent. Okay. Would you like to give us some weaknesses?
So the only weakness I've got is the one I briefly mentioned before, where the author's gone a bit over the top in an attempt to create the kidnapper as a villain. And I don't think it was needed.
So it basically made the villain a bit 2D then, did it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a mistake some writers make that sometimes. So, okay, well, that being the case, I think you're going to give us a good mark. Actually, I don't think it's going to be a rip into pieces mark.
2.
2, just 2.
No.
Okay, in America, for any of our American viewers, I'm sure Amanda's giving this 2 out of 10, aren't you, Amanda?
No.
Okay.
I'm giving it an 8 out of 10.
It's a good mark. Reading in bed. Oh, we should have said part 1, shouldn't we? And we always regard things, people, first-time listeners. Reading in bed, anything over 7 upwards is a recommendation.
Yeah.
So 8 is a recommendation. Good stuff. No, good stuff. Okay. Right, Amanda. That's it, isn't it?
For my book, yeah.
Yeah. Who's next?
You're next.
Okay. What hints do you want?
Whatever you want to give.
Well, mine's about women in Hollywood. It's a bit of an ambiguous one, so that's all I can say, really. So my first solo book. So see you in a minute. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele, and
I am Andy N, of course. Episode 42, yeah. Now, okay. After basically what you could argue are 2 fictional books, it makes sense, Amanda, now, doesn't it? We go on to something a bit more non-fiction.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my first book, solo book this month, is by the journalist for Empire magazine, Helen O'Hara, and the book is called Women versus Hollywood: The Fall and Rise of Women in Film.
Okay, so how did you find out about this book?
Mostly because I've been listening to the journalists talk about it for the past 18 months, because I subscribe to the Empire magazine, film magazine podcast, and she's one of the hosts on it. And she's basically gone on about this book for quite some time. She has about the writing process of it. And it's a book, topic-wise, that has interested me a lot, because I think you know, Amanda, don't you? Like, I listen to a podcast called You Must Remember This.
Yeah.
And the woman that wrote that series has done a book called Seduction that touches some degree similar lines. So.
Okay, so do you want to read the blurb?
Okay. The blurb is. Now, I've actually condensed this blurb a bit as well. So I took a couple of paragraphs out because it did go on for a while. Okay.
Yeah.
A call to arms, Empire Magazine's geek queen, Helen O'Hara. Oh, by the way, man, you'd like her. Her favourite TV series is Supernatural as well.
I like him already.
And that explores women's roles, both in front and behind the camera. Since the birth of Hollywood, how these roles are reflected within wider society and what we can do to level the playing field. The dawn of cinema was a free-for-all, and there was women who forged ahead in many areas of filmmaking. Early pioneers like Dorothy Answer, who invented the boom mic among other innovations, and Alice Guy Blanche shaped the way films are made. But it wasn't long before these talented women were pushed aside and their contributions were written out of film history. How and why did this happen? In Women vs. Hollywood, The Fall and Rise of Women in Film, Helen O'Hara takes a close look at the pioneering and talented women of Hollywood and their work in film since Hollywood began. Equal representation in film matters because it reflects and influences wider social genetic norms. In understanding how women largely written out of Hollywood's own origin story and how the films we watch are put together, we can finally see how to put an end to the picture is so deeply unequal and discover multiple stories just waiting to be told.
Oh. So did you have any particular favourite parts of this book?
Yes, I did. There was lots, mostly about the earlier parts of the book as well, where you're going on about the very early days of cinema. But I want to come on to that in a minute now. Can I ask you a couple of questions, Amanda?
Yeah.
There was a couple of questions at the beginning of this book, and I want to see if you get these, okay? You ready?
Yeah.
In 1917, how many films did Universal Studios release with women credited as director?
None.
8.
I'm surprised, actually, yeah. I thought it would have been none.
And how many in reverse did they release 100 years later with women as credited as a director?
100?
1. And that's
Really?
Pitch Perfect 3, that was, yeah.
That's strange, because I would have thought it'd be the other way around.
Yeah, it surprised me, actually, that things are only just starting to change now. And a lot depends on certain studios, because this really is a fascinating book, because so I've been familiar with Miss O'Hara's work for Empire and also the Empire Magazine podcast for years and years now. And it's a passion project for her. You can see by the level of research gone into this book. And it was fascinating because there's some things that really surprised me on it. Now, let me ask you another question, okay? I've got to try and find the information I'm looking for now. Patty Jenkins, do you know who she is as a director, don't you?
I probably know if I saw what she'd worked on.
Wonder Woman.
All right, yeah.
Now, before she did Wonder Woman in 2017, when did the previous film come out, or she directed?
I don't know.
Would you believe it was 2003?
Yeah.
And that was a film called Monster. If you ever saw that?
I've heard of it. I've not watched it.
Yeah, fascinating film, and she won a load of Oscars for that, and the casting and stuff like that. But it showed the book. It raised a good point earlier on. Like, you find out a lot of men directors can easily get films coming out one after the other, even if you have a big flop. Monster was a critically acclaimed film, but she faced a 14-year battle before her next film came out, Wonder Woman, with loads of projects not getting made for various reasons, and so it was really, really interesting. It was, so that's why. But do you want to know what the book talked about mostly, really, Amanda?
Yeah.
It talked about, obviously, we had a few directors before. I didn't really know. Alice Guy Blanche and Dorothy Answer. They were in the dawn of Hollywood. But in the 1930s, when then we went into talkie films, the studio system got created. And as soon as the studio system got created, you had things like the casting couch cropping up, and women that were directors were brushed aside.
Yeah.
And women were treated like the second-rate objects a lot of the time. It's really quite. I didn't realise. I knew it was bad because I've read a lot of really, really bad stories about it. But it's shocking when you think how bad it was behind the camera as well. You didn't see, there wasn't a female cameraman or female producers, directors, anything like that, really.
Yeah.
That's why, but the research has gone into this. I think it took her about 2 years to write what I've heard, and she must have had an archive of thousands of documents to refer to here, because the actual back of the book itself that lists everything like that she did research-wise. You've got like in with here, the index page itself goes on for 15 pages. That's why, and then you've got like somewhere in the vicinity of a couple of pages of books she's read, tons of useful websites, and you had like what she did. Well, the references on it. The references were nearly 30 pages. Things that she referred to with influence. Do you see what I mean? The research is really, really well done on this. So,
yeah, I don't think I'd have the patience to do that much research.
Well, you think she's a full-time journalist, really. So I could see what she was getting out of it, really. That's why. But no, it was a fantastic book. Really, really good. Well worth your time, to be honest with
you. Yeah. So is there anything else you want to say about it? Any more good points?
No, I've covered that. I've covered all the good points, haven't you? So
is there anything that you didn't like about it?
Yeah, well, it's not major. Far from major, this one. But it's not as good as Corinne Long's with Seduction. Or you must remember this. Because it's only 300 odd pages. I think Seduction was nearer 500, if memory's correct. And she covered a lot of ground in the book. I think to really expand some of the people's stories, you'd probably need another 600 pages to get to grips with some of the characters from the early ones. Because some of the early characters in Dawn of Hollywood, which I hadn't heard of myself, I would love to know more about.
Yeah.
I was also struggled a bit with the last chapter or two as well, because I felt nowadays, because I wanted to learn more about the early characters as much as the new ones, which I suspect could have been doozies of stories, which is possibly worth a follow-up.
Yeah, well, you never know, there might be a follow-up. I think the problem if you put them all into one book is that it becomes too much and people get put off, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's a good point, Amanda, straight away of it. I said she covered a lot of ground for 300 pages in it, where perhaps really it might have been a good idea to possibly consider doing more as well. But again, watch your spaces, I would say. So, right, Amanda. Well, that's pretty. I've not got a ton to say about this book, but it is very, very well told indeed.
Okay, so what's your mark out of 10?
What do you think I'm going to give this?
I think it's going to be an 8 or 9.
I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 because it's a good book. And thanks to my brother for getting me for birthday this month. I'm glad he did. So I really enjoyed it. Right, Amanda, we're over to you next, aren't we? You're next.
I'm next. I'm going to run away.
Is that your hint, is it?
No.
Run away by myself in 8 words.
No. My hint is, oh, no, there's a person that looks exactly like me.
Well, that's your older sister, isn't it?
Yeah, and we've split up live on the podcast.
No, we'll move on, okay? Seriously, apologies, Tracy. Now, okay, Amanda, we'll take a quick break then, haven't we? So, see you all in a minute, guys. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed, episode 42. She is
Amanda Steele.
I am Andy N. Over to Amanda now today for a second solo book.
Okay, so this is called The Double, and it's by Gosslin.
Oh, yes. Okay, Amanda. How did you find this book, first of all, then?
This is published, I think it's Legend Press, and I got in touch with them back when I was writing reviews for Joycine, which I'm not doing anymore, and I managed to get myself a free copy.
Oh, so have you been sitting on this book for a bit then, unfortunately, have you?
Yeah, I've written a review on Medium, and I've done an extract on the extract show that I do.
Oh, yeah.
So now all that's left to do is review it here.
Oh, okay, then we'll give us a blurb then.
Okay. Following a violent outburst at an award ceremony, Vidor Hval, a prize-winning neuroscientist and the Cambridge Don, is sent to an isolated psychiatric clinic in the Swiss Alps. When the clinic's director, Anton Gosslin, tries in vain to unearth the missing pieces of Vidor's life, he suspects his reluctant patient is not who he appears to be. After one of the patients at the clinic goes missing, Gosslin has reason to doubt that Vidor's self-proclaimed innocence is real. But what is he hiding, and who might be next?
Ooh, okay then. Ooh, that's a good cliffhanger at the end of it, isn't it? Straight away. So, okay, well, that been the case, then, Amanda. What did you like about this book?
So the good points about this is clearly a lot of research and geography knowledge, because it bounces about from place to place, and also there's a lot of psychological side of the story with the psychology when Gesson's trying to get Vidor to sort of open up to him. So there's a lot of psychology there. So you could tell that the research is being done, but it did get very technical at times. But I'll go on to that in the bad points anyway.
Yeah, it does. So we'll come on to that one bad points. I've got a few questions I can ask you about that. And so, okay. So tell us about the central. Is it one central character or a number of central characters?
It's sort of a joint thing between Dr. Gosslin and Vidor Hval, who's in his care at the psychiatric clinic that he runs.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
They seem to share the storyline in a way.
Interesting. Okay, so was it then that been the case, and did it vary from chapter to chapter? Or was it not that sort of pace?
Yeah, it flicked backwards and forwards. So the doctor's travelling about here, there, and everywhere, trying to find out about his patient and speaking to people, and the patient's a bit, I don't know what the right word to use, but he seems to think that everyone's out against him and it's all the conspiracy and all this, and I think he's a bit deluded.
Yeah, it sounds like he had issues potentially. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it. So he was a troubled man. So yeah, okay. So is there anything else then, strengths-wise, you want to go on to with this book?
No, there's nothing that I haven't already covered.
Okay then. Well, that been the case, we better go on to the weaknesses then, hadn't we?
Okay, so like I said before, it gets quite complex, and I don't think it really needs to be that complex. And even though I don't think you need to spoon read the reader all the time, I do think you need to sort of appeal to the average reader who might not know all of this stuff that's in the book. And I think I got lost in places, and if I'm getting lost in places, there must be other people that read it and they're going to get lost in those places as well.
Yeah, sounds like it is one that's perhaps should have been toned back by the editors, and yeah, that makes sense. That completely. So, was there anything else you didn't like about this book?
I kind of got a gist of what happened at the end, but on the same thing, it's just I didn't quite understand exactly, and I felt like a lot of it didn't need to be there, to be honest. It just seemed a bit like, oh, I'm going to prove how clever I am and write this. But then you lose readers because not everyone's going to have this same education and knowledge of all these subjects.
Yeah, it's in a different way. It's going to be what my next book's going to be about as well, because I can see what you're getting at straight away with that. So I'd be interested to know what mark you're going to get this one, Amanda, actually, I must admit.
Okay, so shall I move on to my verdict and my mark?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, so for my verdict, I've put in my notes, I think it's a good idea and the plot's well developed, but maybe too complex. But it's still worth a read. I wasn't gripped by it, so I give it a 7 out of 10. So I recommend it, but only just.
Yeah, it's one it's a recommendation to be applied with caution. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. So it's like it. Sometimes I think as readers, it's always good if you read various sort of books anyway, ones that can test you a bit more. So that's what's happened there with that one, I think, for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Right, Amanda, do you want to know what my hint towards my last book for the month's going to be?
Yeah.
Rot.
Oh, I thought there was a funny smell.
I know. That's all I'm going to say. Come back, you'll find out why I'm talking about rot. Right? See you in a minute.
You're next.
I'm always next. I'm used to that. See you in a minute, guys. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed. And this is Mandy, and that's Andy.
Yeah. Occasionally, she's gone into that deep alias now called Mandy N. And when she goes into Mandy N, strange things happen, don't they, Mandy?
Yeah.
I know. Well, of course, episode 42, Andy N, Amanda Steele. Now, my last book for the month is by the recording artist called Jenny Hewitt, Hval. And this is her debut novel. It came out a couple of years ago. And okay, what do you want to know first, Amanda?
Blurb.
Okay. I want to know what you're going to think of this, Amanda, in a minute, okay? A lyrical debut novel for a musician and artist renowned for her sharp sexual and political imagery. Jo is in a strange new country university and having a more peculiar time than most. She's in a house with no walls, a roommate with no boundaries, and a home that seems ever more alive. Jo's sensuality and all her senses become increasingly heightened and fraught as the lines between bodies and plants and dreaming and wakefulness blur and mesh. This debut novel from critically acclaimed artist and musician Jenny Hewitt presents a heady and hypersensual portrait of sexual awakening and queer desire. A complex, poetic and strange novel about bodies, sexuality and the female gender.
Okay, I have to ask how you got hold of this book.
Well, I've got some albums with the singer Trooper told you. Yeah, and she's full on. Fascinating, but full on. And I didn't actually know till back into last year. She'd actually done 2 books a couple of years ago. And they've come out reasonably recently in translations, because I think she's even Norwegian or Danish, that territory. And so that said, this is a translation. So, okay, Amanda, what would you want to know?
What did you like about the book?
Yeah, well, it's a strange book. That's for sure of it. Okay, it begins off focusing on the character called Joanna, who travels from Norway to attend university in a small Austrian town, and finds everything from the people, their attitudes, the food, and everything else completely different from everything else she has known parallel. And then you meet a woman called Carol, whose life she comes into. And Carol, in contrast to Joanna, is in a temporary employment and looking for a roommate to share a large, very unusually built house, which is an ex-brewery.
Okay.
And the women then become conjoined by this strange property, but as the book develops, becomes a central character itself, with a beating heart, and it becomes their refuge from the world that has no outside, has no place for them. And then the house seems to strangle them as they become more removed from reality.
Okay then. So what kind of genre is this book?
It was advertised. People will talk about it on Goodreads as queer fiction or queer lesbian fiction, and it's a slow boiler. I'm not so sure of it. It's one of those books where it was weird, like it was like borderline horror, really. John, it's a very, very, very psychological book to me, John. Very, very multi-layered.
So is there anything else that you liked about it before you move on to bad points?
I said to you, it's a very short book, this one. It's 148 pages long. So when I was reading, I've read it all, well, mostly on the cricket around the back of us over about a week. And I was, you're looking at a book sometimes, Amanda, when you see like it goes from 1%, you're thinking, it's taking ages to get to the next percent on the Kindle list. But I was reading it a bit of it, it's like, it's gone 6-7% here. What's going on? It's a very quick book. But the narrative doesn't seem to move very fast.
No.
And that's what happened. It was if people want a book that's going to challenge them, this is one that's definitely for that. It's a really, really weird book, and I'll come on to the weaknesses in a minute.
So is the stuff going on in the house, is it more psychological, or is there another world element to it?
It's a bit of both. I think it's psychological most of it, to be honest with you. It does seem to become more and more psychological. And it's one of the ones where it's very, very slight, and you have to really pay attention to the book. I'll come on to this more in a minute on the bad points, because it crosses over a lot, really. So.
Okay, so do you want to move on to the bad points?
Yeah, well, it's a very brief book, like I said before. It's only 148 pages, and it is very short on plot, long on atmosphere, which reminds me a lot of the author's music, actually, which I definitely do like, but it's one that you have to pay attention to. And this, I didn't enjoy as much as the music, because even though it's only 148 pages, it's still incredibly slow moving. Which is not a bad thing, I guess, but have you ever read a book, Amanda, where it's so short, you've had to go back and reread it again to fully understand it?
No, I usually just think I don't understand that. I throw it in the fire.
Nice. No, it's this one. I got to the end of it, and I thought to myself, there's a lot of stuff I didn't necessarily understand with first reading there, and I had to go back and have another listen, another read. It didn't take long to understand. It's a short book, but a music can be like that sometimes. It's one you've got to pay attention sometimes, and it's definitely a book version of music, but I didn't enjoy it as much.
Okay, so what's the verdict then?
Well, as I said before, it's an interesting book. It's worth a read. It's just not an easy read. I was quite uncomfortable reading parts of it, most because I felt I was missing things on it, and it was really bleak. It was really, really bleak. So, what do you reckon I'm going to give it?
I think it'll probably be 7.
It's a 7. It's a 7. Yeah, 7. I don't think I can go any higher than that, because it's just too. It's too difficult a book, to be honest with you, to recommend, because, like I said before, Amanda, your last book, sometimes I like that, aren't they? When the books are that hard to read,
Yeah.
Can't recommend it fully, can you, so?
No.
That's why I said it's worth a read, but don't expect to have an easy time, which is not that. She did a second book, Amanda, called Women Against God, and that's really difficult. This was hard. That next book is just, that'll do your head in. Put it bluntly, right? So,
yeah.
By the way, right, guys and girls, that's it for this month. Amanda.
Yeah.
Have we got any hints about what you're doing next month?
I have no idea. And that's not a hint. I just have no idea.
Do you want to know what my book I've just started reading is?
Yeah.
Have you heard of a drummer called Stephen Morris?
Sounds familiar.
Well, he's the drummer in Joy Division and New Order.
Right, okay.
I picked up when we were out with my dad a couple of weeks ago. It came out last year, actually, in paperback. A book called Record, Play, Pause. And this is Confessions of a Post-Punk Percussionist from Joy Division to New Order. So that's going to be my first book for next month. And it's going to take a while, actually, a fairly heavy book as well. So, but I said Amanda doesn't know, so Amanda's first book's going to be called I Don't Know What the Book is going to be.
I will go look on Amazon and see if there's a book called that, and if there is and it's reasonably priced, I might download it and review it.
Do it. That's all I'm going to say. So, anyway, guys and girls, but that is it for today. So, as I always say, and I know Amanda says, stay safe, guys. Stay over. So, say bye, Amanda.
And I just say bye, Amanda, and wave at the camera.
Like a mad woman. Bye, yeah. Bye. Right.
Bye.
Stay safe, guys. See you all next time.
Reading in bed. Reading in bed.